For people with disabilities in Nigeria, most days feel like navigating a world that wasn't built with them in mind. Imagine needing to go to a school or a government office, but you can't get through the front door. Or losing out on a job, not because you're unqualified, but because your wheelchair won't fit under the desk, or because climbing many flights of stairs is unrealistic. For nearly 20 years, activists in Nigeria pushed for a national law to protect the rights of people with disabilities. In 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act into law. So, what are some of the key provisions of this act? Let's break this down. Nigeria ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2007 and its optional protocol in 2010. But it took much longer to pass a national law. The National Assembly passed disability bills twice, once in 2011 and again in 2015, but neither was signed into law by the president at the time. It wasn't until January 2019, after public protests and outcry, that the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act was signed. This was the first time people with disabilities in Nigeria had full legal protection at the federal level. The act bans discrimination and guarantees equal rights in education, employment, healthcare, and access to public spaces. Discrimination, as defined by the law, means treating someone unfairly simply because they have a disability. This could include refusing to hire someone, denying them service, or giving them lower quality education or care. The Act makes this kind of discrimination illegal for individuals, companies, schools, hospitals, and government offices. Violators can face fines up to 100,000 naira for individuals and up to 1 million naira for organizations, and even a prison term. People with disabilities can also sue if their rights are violated. Another key part of the law is the requirement for accessibility. Public buildings like schools, hospitals, and offices must have ramps, lifts, accessible toilets, and other aids. Roads, pavements, and buses should also be designed to help people with mobility or visual impairments move around safely. The law gave a 5-year deadline, which ended in 2023, for all public facilities to comply. If they remain inaccessible, people can file complaints, and the authorities are expected to act or face penalties. But 2 years after the deadline had passed, many public buildings remain largely inaccessible. Section 4 of the Act also protects education and employment rights. Children with disabilities are entitled to free education up to secondary school, and schools must provide inclusive learning tools like Braille and sign language. They must also have trained staff. With regard to employment, public institutions must reserve at least 5% of jobs for people with disabilities to support inclusion and reduce stigma. To ensure the law is enforced, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities was created. It operates under the presidency and works to protect and promote disability rights across Nigeria. The Commission ensures access to education, healthcare, jobs, and housing. It checks that public buildings and transport systems meet accessibility standards. It can also investigate complaints and support legal action for victims of discrimination. The Commission also issues certificates of disability, runs awareness campaigns, trains employers and schools on inclusion, and supports the creation of special schools and rehab centers. It works with both the government and private sectors to include disability rights in policies and programs. However, the Commission says it faces challenges as operations are often hampered by issues like unreliable electricity. Some also argue that the body is underfunded. For 2025, it proposed a 2.1 billion naira budget to run key programs such as the Disability Socio-Economic Empowerment Program and the Gender and Development Program for Women with Disabilities. Air travel is also addressed in the Act. Airlines in Nigeria must ensure their aircraft are accessible, and this includes providing working wheelchairs, helping passengers board and disembark safely, giving priority boarding, and having support equipment in airports for people with disabilities. Still, critics argue that the law doesn't go far enough. It mainly focuses on health and employment, but doesn't tackle other big issues like poverty, low wages, limited career growth, or access to assistive devices. A government study found that over 90% of people with disabilities in Nigeria cannot afford the tools like wheelchairs or prosthetics they need to move around. Most public and private buildings still lack basic accessibility features. This makes it hard for people with disabilities to enter banks, schools, markets, or government offices. One study found that 80% of construction companies do not consider disability access when designing buildings. By 2024, only 19 out of Nigeria's 36 states had adopted the Disability Act as state law. This means people with disabilities in the other 17 states are not legally protected from discrimination. Like with all laws, implementation ensures the difference between being protected on paper and being empowered in real life. It is not enough to have the right to access a building if the ramp is never built. So while the policy is a major step toward inclusion, change only happens when there is compliance, funding, accountability, and public awareness.